Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's the InShow, Australia's only show dedicated to innovation from Adelaide, Australia and across the globe.
David Grice and Troy Sincock here on our favourite day of the week.
Inspiration Day.
Yeah, Friday is just, you're heading into a weekend, you want to be uplifted. And I got to say, the InShow podcast has delivered for the last 6 months with some incredible inspirational words from people that we've spoken to who themselves have been inspirational.
Yeah, what's your favourite so far, you think?
David, I reckon it was probably Robin Freeth from TEDx Adelaide, because I didn't expect him to say what he said. He talked about the value of volunteers with the work that he was doing, and how he realised that he couldn't achieve what he was achieving without the help of others. I thought it just made me realise that that's an ongoing theme with all the innovators and entrepreneurs and startups that we've spoken to. They just can't go it alone. I found that really inspiring.
And today we've got Sam Davies from Digital Noir talking about the greater integration of the internet in our lives.
One thing I've been thinking about a lot is sort of the Internet of Things, and moving forward how we've got this sort of integration of the internet into everything in our lives. One thing we've talked about a lot in the studio is voice. It's interesting being on the radio talking about this, but how voice control and even just things like podcasts and the radio is becoming sort of a much bigger part of our lives. We started thinking about how, so if you, I don't know if you've seen the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, who falls in love with an operating system essentially, but that idea of having something in your ear which we can talk to. And even now I wake up in the morning and talk to a robot next to my bed to ask what's on my calendar for the day. Hi Alexa, what's on the calendar? But thinking forward, if we're controlling lots of things in our lives, just with our voice, how does that change the shape of things like websites and apps? Because they're so visual at the moment and everything's controlled visually. I think if you said, I need to find a web designer in Adelaide audibly now, most websites aren't going to be able to return that. So thinking about how voice is going to control our lives in the next sort of 5-10 years is pretty interesting. Obviously there's sort of an AI part of it where how clever the voice is gauging what you're saying and what your next sort of step's going to be in the process. But I think websites are soon going to need to have a very clear pathway for someone that is browsing verbally.
Well, being the weekend tomorrow, we are going to make it easy for you. If you've been lazy or you just haven't decided to listen to the InShow podcast up until now this week, what we're going to do is throw together all of the work that we've done into one neatly packaged show.
Yeah, lovely. I just love hearing it all together and just sort of hearing the full interviews go through. It's just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we'll be catching up with Wendy Perry, who's the Managing Director of Workforce Blueprint. We've got a story about black holes, inspiration for you, and a whole lot more. That's tomorrow on the InShow podcast.
The InShow, Inspiration. Subscribe to the InShow podcast on iTunes. A Dave and the Beanstalk production.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.